Hi, I'm Lara Beck with Beck Communications Group. Each week, a group of insiders offers perspective on the week's top stories. This week, we're sounding off on important issues women face in the workplace. Forbes ranks Indiana 45th nationwide in workforce readiness. We're talking about wage disparity, leveling the playing field, plus how do we produce the next wave of talented female leaders. Our insiders are Springbuck's Vice President of People and Administration, Nicole Bickett, INHP's Director of Homeowner Development and Client Services, Lori Jones, and Hollowell Consulting President, Jennifer Hollowell. Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here. Thanks for being with us. Yeah, thank you. Starting out, let's dive right in. Let's talk about workforce readiness. We are ranked 45th nationwide. Nicole, this is really your area of expertise. How do we prepare for the next generation of female talent? Tell us a little bit, broadly speaking, about what we can do.
Yeah, so especially from my vantage point in tech, women hold only about 25% of the tech jobs. So we need to encourage women to engage in tech jobs early, and that may be as early as elementary school, even junior high. Microsoft offers some programs where they encourage girls to come to their offices, practice coding, learn about tech, learn about business from a very early age. And then if they have an aptitude and an interest, they can continue it from there on. And then later in college, I think companies like ours can go into those colleges, provide mentoring opportunities for women, find the groups that they're involved in and speak to those groups. And I think there's some unique ways that we can engage women early for that, as soon as they're girls. But then I think there's also some creative ways we can manage this in recruiting.
Okay.
So typically you see, a data engineer being held by a man, and we may need to find female recruiters that are talented and skilled at finding females for those jobs. Intel started a practice where they offered $4,000 for recruiting their other employees that were women.
Right.
And that was so successful that Microsoft and Accenture followed suit.
Oh, that's terrific. Terrific. That's great.
So,
as we talk about that a little bit too, especially in moving women into positions of leadership, Jen, you run your own company, and I know you to be someone who mentors women, especially in the political world where you don't see that a lot. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I certainly try to. When I think about 25 years ago when I got started in politics, I was often the only female in the room for any meeting that I was in. And so I think it starts with us, and I've been very intentional about trying to recruit, promote, and support women, not just in politics, but in government, in the corporate world as they want to go on to something else. And, I think it's important that we support each other. That's something that I know we've heard before, but it's true. And so we need to be promoting women as leaders, and the more we can demonstrate our leadership and get out in front of there, it becomes more natural for people to see us in those roles.
Absolutely. And that leads me over to you, Lori. You work for a female president. You lead a female team. You said a little bit earlier, it's all about the balance, especially in that area.
Absolutely. Our community is diverse.
Right.
So it makes sense to have a diverse leadership team. And so we're very privileged to bring different experiences and different ideas and thoughts to the table to help support the community.
Exactly. Moving on to wage disparity. We make 75 cents on the dollar for every man. And I know we all find that an unacceptable statistic. Jen, I think one of the key ways we can go about improving that is by increasing political participation. We're seeing record numbers of women getting involved in the process. Talk a little bit about that from your perspective.
Well, I will. And I think there's some good and some bad signs. I thought it was interesting that you said 25% of women in tech. The average number of women in state legislatures across the country and in Congress is 25%. And think, we make up 51% of the population, 25% of the legislatures. And so that's a challenge. And again, part of it is women recruiting women. And oftentimes, I don't know that it's intentional that men are recruiting men, but they're in these leadership positions, and it may be just a familiarity or, a bond that they have. And so women really have to get out, I think, and encourage more women to take on those roles. And that's something that, frankly, over the past couple of years, Democrats have done a much better job of than Republicans. And so I think it's something that we have to work on in both parties.
Absolutely, absolutely. Nicole, you and I have talked a little bit about wage disparity off camera, and some of the things that Springbuck does to really lift up women within the organization. Share some of that with us. It's really interesting what you guys do.
Yes, we are very proud of our program called Women of Springbuck. And it is about 30 to 35% of our entire population of our company. So, and it's very well attended. And we have programs where women are able to connect with one another, mentor, learn new topics. We recently had one of our topics was called Shine Theory, and I had never heard of it, but it was a term that was coined in 2013, and it basically talks about women collaborating rather than competing with one another. Mm-hmm. And so it was, we've used some of those tactics at work to continue to invest in other women and celebrate their successes. We celebrate their promotions. And then we also try to elevate some of the lesser known voices through this group.
Oh, I think that's terrific how you can amplify each other. Absolutely. Lori, access to capital really for women is essential. And at INHP, that's something that you really focus on in terms of building wealth through home ownership. You were sharing a little bit of your story with us in the green room today. Share it with everyone here because it's so powerful.
Yeah, it's a great testimony. I was our client at one point in my life, a single mom, no child support, very low income, determined to put my child in a home before she graduated from high school. Right. And I did it. And that's who we see at INHP. Mm-hmm. The majority of our families are female. It was single mom, and not making a lot of money, but wanting just that safe, decent, affordable home for their family. And so building that wealth, it not only gives them a bigger self-esteem, with themselves, but also they're building assets and leaving something for the family.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And I think that also sort of segues into a topic that we have discussed a little bit of, and that is how do we close that gender gap? We know that networking is a great way to connect, building on our relationships. Before we go today, maybe we can just do a quick roundtable of just a recommendation or things we found that are helpful. Nicole, I'll start with you.
Sure. I think we need to engage more men in the conversation.
Right.
We have conversations amongst ourselves, and we have the Women of Springbuck groups talks about the issues that we face. But if there's 75% of men in tech that aren't hearing the conversation, we can't move forward. Exactly. So I think that getting some male advocates would be really helpful.
Mm-hmm. John, what do you think?
And I think some of it, you talk about the wage disparity, but I think a lot of what women seek is flexibility. We need more options, and so maybe an innovative approach, and whether that's leave or things, so that they can be moms and that they can take care of their parents, which oftentimes women do. And I think we need to help encourage companies to be more flexible, and that would help.
That's a great point, because that also goes to women who are who take a hiatus and then come back for those purposes. That can really lift them up. Lori, we'll close with you. Yeah.
And in alignment here, mentoring. Right. Our young girls, letting them see us in our leadership roles, saying, you can do this, we did it, you could do this. And so just being out in the community, being visible, and talking and mentoring the girls.
That sounds great. Well, thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
We will be back right after this, and please stay with us.